Hello everyone, and welcome to Let's Go to the Ring, where we take a look at the good old days, and not so good old days, of World Championship Wrestling series by series. I'm your host, Bob Moore, and joining me, fresh from unpacking a carry-on bag full of massive trophies, is Alec Pridgeon.
You know, you get really weird looks when you go through the X-ray machine.
I can imagine. I mean, they're large metallic objects, and some of them appear quite sharp, I would imagine, so
Yeah.
can be a bit of a problem.
If you're lucky, you get one guy give you a nice high five, but other than that, it's really suspicious.
How's it going tonight, Al?
Great, how's it going with you?
It's going good. We are 2 shows into our 3-show run of this series.
Yeah.
It's brisk, let's call it that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's been a fun one so far. Hoping that continues.
Yeah.
Tonight, we are taking a look at WCW New Japan Supershow 2, known in its more complete form in Japan as Super Warriors in Tokyo Dome. And come on, WCW, why do you rename this stuff?
Right? Yeah, exactly.
These are great titles. Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
Super Warriors in Tokyo Dome was held on January 4th, 1992, at the Tokyo Dome in Tokyo, Japan, in front of 50,000 fans per ProWrestlingHistory.com. As noted last show, Super Warriors in Tokyo Dome is the first in a series of January 4th Tokyo Dome shows put on by New Japan Pro Wrestling, a series which continues to this day under the flat-out amazing name of Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah, that's true.
Super Warriors in Tokyo Dome was brought to America as WCW New Japan Supershow 2 on pay-per-view in March of 1992. I was unable to find actual pay-per-view numbers or the exact date.
Yeah, it's weird that the show's air date is not common knowledge.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if it actually means that it was just available for general purchase during that time. I don't know if I don't know enough about pay-per-view during the 90s or ever, frankly, to know if that's even a thing.
I mean, from the point I know about pay-per-view, which is around 2000 or so when I really got into it, wrestling, the show would just air and you would buy it and then there would be the replay.
Yeah.
I guess if this is an early version, an on-demand thing, any point during March, you can watch this boringly titled wrestling show.
That's what I'm wondering, if it was more of a general availability during this period, since it wasn't a live show. As with last year's show, we're going to be reviewing the WCW version, since we are a WCW podcast.
Right.
In this case, that means we get 7 of the 12 matches from the Japanese show, surprising us, as the Wikipedia article claimed that we would get 6, incorrectly eliminating Riki Choshu versus Tatsumi Fujinami, which actually is included.
Yes.
So, what is cut from our version? Black Cat versus Hiroyoshi Yamamoto, Osamu Kido and Kuniaki Kobayashi versus Kengo Kimura and Kantaro Hoshino, Tony Halme versus Scott Norton. Norton, of course, we know, and Tony is better known in the US as Ludwig Borga in the WWF.
Yes.
A heel from Finland, of all places.
Mm-hmm. The most evil of all countries, clearly.
The scariest of all countries, Finland.
Yes.
Shinya Hashimoto versus Bill Kazmaier. Kind of sad about that one, as both of these guys are ones we've only gotten to see once so far, I believe.
Yeah.
And Antonio Inoki versus Hiroshi Hase. Of all the matches to cut,
right?
They cut Antonio Inoki and Hiroshi Hase.
I'm kind of amazed they were allowed back after that.
It's amazing. As a reminder, not only was Inoki one of the most famous and notable Japanese wrestlers in the world, but at the time he was a sitting member of the Japanese government.
Correct, yes.
And Hase himself would go on to be elected in 1995.
Correct, yes. Just 2 quick notes. One is that Hiroyoshi Yamamoto is more well known by his gimmick name, Hiroyoshi Tenzan.
Mm-hmm.
This is before he became a big star. There's a thing in Japan, I've probably mentioned before, where you come in, if you're accepted into training, you become what's called a young lion.
Right.
You're brought in, you basically have no gimmick, you wear black boots, black tights, basically you're Steve Austin, and you earn your way, and then you get a gimmick, and you get a character, and you sort of become your own thing. So this is 1992, he is not at that point yet. I know we saw him at Starrcade 95, him and Randy Savage. I don't think we had him on the other shows.
I don't believe so.
The Shinya Hashimoto versus Bill Kazmaier match would be Bill Kazmaier's final wrestling match ever.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, my.
It doesn't seem like he got injured or anything. It wasn't like, oh, I should probably stop. It was just, I'm guessing his contract must have run up with WCW and he decided to wrestle anywhere else.
How interesting, because Tony and JR actually reference Bill at a certain point on the show, his entrance carrying the world.
Yes. Yeah.
And there's no like note in their voice of that there's been any trouble between him and the company or anything. So that's interesting to hear.
As far as I know, there's no big controversy. There's no major injury. It was just, he was never a major position in the card. Obviously, we saw him on Starrcade 91, where he was in the random team with Jushin Liger.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, he wasn't a major player there. So it's not surprising to see him go, which is not to be insulting it, obviously, but it's just, it wasn't like suddenly a world champion left.
Right, yeah. Well, will what's left on the show be good enough to make us forget that we're missing Inoki versus Hase? To find out, let's go to the ring. We get the same opening music as last year over a montage of the stars who will be appearing. Notably, this year, Vader, with awesome helmet, and Lex Luger are included.
Mm-hmm.
Shots of the Tokyo Dome follow, and we cut to Eric Bischoff in front of a green screen with the show logo.
Yeah.
Bischoff openly talks about the show in the past tense, so at least we're not pulling a collision in Korea and awkwardly trying to pretend the whole thing is live until sometimes we don't.
Mm-hmm.
Bischoff claims that there were 65,000 people on hand and goes over the selected matches. Interestingly, he has to note that Lex Luger was the heavyweight champion of the world at that time,
Mm-hmm.
as Luger had actually lost the belt to Sting in February of 1992 between the show's actual performance date and the date that this was aired on American pay-per-view.
Correct, yes.
Throwing to our first match, Bischoff happily notes that it features Jushin Thunder Liger and almost gives us our title with a "Let's get down to the ring."
Oh.
Maybe that's like a dance spin-off, Al?
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
That'd be terrible. Neither of us knows anything about dancing.
Yeah, that's true.
So our first match is Jushin Thunder Liger, Masashi Oyagi, and Akira, last name redacted,
Mm-hmm.
Nogami, versus Hiro Saito, Norio Hanaga, and Super Strong Machine in a 6-man tag match. The referee for this one is Japanese ref number 1 because they never said the guy's name on the entire show.
Oh, yeah, they don't, did they? Obviously, if you listen to the last episode, we had Liger and Akira in a big, like, sort of blood feud match. You know, Akira leaves the company for a year to go train, comes back, and then doesn't win, unfortunately. So a year later, here they are as tag team, which is interesting.
This will be a pattern on this show.
That is true, yes. It's interesting. I don't have much on him specifically, but it's interesting to see the whole Super Strong Machine gimmick.
Yes.
Most old school wrestling fans know this from WWF. They would put wrestlers under the same mask and outfit, and they would be, you know, Super Blank Machine and such. So you got Andre the Giant wearing a mask, and somehow you can't tell who it is. It could be anybody.
I think doesn't even like go by Giant Machine or something like that.
Yeah, I believe he's Super Giant Machine, yeah. And then Hulk Hogan also wearing a mask. Again, you can't tell his body type at all. Obviously, that was a holdover from like the mid to late 80s in WWF. So it's weird. This guy who's just was doing that at the same time, still doing it. So, hey.
Mm-hmm.
One last note is that, as you mentioned, the Tape Daters event means that Liger was actually WCW Light Heavyweight Champion when this match took place. But notably, he doesn't have his belt. I don't know if he simply didn't take it out or they cut around it. Because, of course, he would drop the belt in the time between when this match took place and when the show aired, losing, of course, to Brian Pillman.
Yeah, they do pretty much cut out like the entrances from most of the matches on this show, so he might well have brought the belt out and just have put it down by the time they actually cut to this.
Yeah, it's very more likely, yeah.
As with last year, the team of Tony Schiavone and JR provide commentary. I believe, though I might be wrong, that their commentary segments were probably recorded live at the time of the show. They sound like they're speaking live, in contrast to the Bischoff segments.
Yeah, they don't talk in past tense about the show, so I would assume they did live commentary and they just kept that.
Yeah. This is a battle of epic outfits.
Mm-hmm.
with Akira in his kabuki gear, Aoyagi in a martial arts uniform, Liger in a rather nice lavender version of his usual superhero gear, and Super Strong Machine in a purple luchador outfit.
Pretty much, yeah.
Al, you and I both kind of thought that there was something wrong with the color balance, seeing Liger in purplish colors, right?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
It's not until mid-match when Tony comments on the lavender outfit that we realize, oh no, there's nothing wrong with the video. That just is a rare color choice from Liger.
When, of course, Super Strong Machine's partners wearing black and bright neon green as well.
Yeah. Like, it's still a bright outfit, but they look much more like normal wrestlers than everyone else in the match.
That's fair, yeah.
And yeah, I can definitely tell that they're a standard tag team from their similar looks. Get a brawl to start, and Liger and Akira get dumped out, ending up fighting with Hanaga and Machine, so it's Aoyagi versus Saito to start. That goes poorly for Aoyagi, who takes a beating from Saito, Hanaga, and Machine in turn, but he manages to tag Akira, who also takes a beating from the three. Liger's turn, and he does land a quite solid double stomp from the top, but Saito stops any chance of sustained offense with a slug to the gut, and Saito and Machine beat Liger down too. Liger hits a cool flip kick to escape and tags Aoyagi, and the match gets more even as Aoyagi's kicks and knee strikes set up a great Akira leg drop and single leg crab on Hanaga, but Saito just casually boots him hard in the chest to free Hanaga and resume the beating. 2 counts off a Machine clothesline and a triple team, ending with a Saito elbow drop, but Akira gets Saito into his corner for a triple team clubbering, and they get 1 and 2 counts off a Liger flipping senton and Liger second rope moonsault, then trade off against Saito. Akira, putting on a single leg crab again, eats headbutts from Machine. Akira, start putting holds on near your corner, okay?
Yeah.
It doesn't go well for you. Akira keeps hold to tag Liger, but Saito soon escapes with a spinebuster and tags Machine. 2 off a Machine elbow drop, and Hanaga gets in, but Liger grabs him when he goes up top, only for Saito to knock Liger down, so Hanaga can get 2 with a diving clothesline after all. Somewhere, Ric Flair makes a note to hire Saito to stop Flair karma spots. Liger fights back with a cool top rope butterfly suplex and tags Akira, who gets booted in the crotch almost immediately. Poor guy. He eats a double team spike pile driver for a couple 2 counts, but kicks Hanaga in the face to escape, and Akira, Aoyagi, and Liger pull their own double teams, with Liger and Akira getting their own revenge spike pile driver on Machine. Saito in, but Liger counters a Saito Hanaga double press with a double drop kick and tags Aoyagi, who kicks the crap out of Saito and Machine, taking a few blows himself but dodging a Machine diving headbutt. Liger adds insult to injury by hitting one of his own. Aoyagi clearly forgets a spot momentarily. He kind of climbs out of the ropes and then stops and comes back in.
Oh, yeah.
But he recovers, holding Machine for a Akira top rope dropkick that would make Z-Man proud. 2 counts on Akira off a Saito Hanaga powerbomb, Saito senton, and Saito second rope senton, but Akira reverses a Saito German suplex into the Dragon suplex for the 3 count and the win. JR credits Tatsumi Dragon Fujinami as the innovator of that move. Akira, Liger, and Aoyagi celebrate, and you would definitely never mistake that shot for anything other than a pro wrestling show with that combination of outfits.
Yeah, that's true.
Thoughts on this one?
I thought this was a pretty solid match and really good back and forth action. Obviously, outside the first section where every time they would get in, they get beat up. It does kind of play to the story that the other trio are much more of a cohesive team. A trio rather than a group of 3 people that we get along but aren't a team. So you tell a very good story that way.
Oh, it definitely works. It's just very notable.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely interesting because, again, you have 2 rivals in Liger and Akira. And Oyagi, from what I could read up on him, he was like legit karateka. I think that's the term for that. So when he transitioned to wrestling, that's why you see a lot more karate strikes in that rather than suplexes and chin locks and the like from him.
His strikes are really good.
Oh yeah. Obviously, this has the advantage of, as we covered from previous shows, of a 6-man match. So you have one more guy on each side to tag in and out. so you can keep the action going more continuously. You need less rest spots. Other than if you hold, there's never like a pause point in the match.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes it a good opener in that regards. We'll get to an issue I generally have throughout the show, which is that we don't get like a big tag team finish, which I know is not every tag match has that, but I like a tag finish. And so I was coming to get more of that, but getting a Dragon Suplex is still really good. Kira does well. Everyone does pretty well. I didn't get a lot of Super Strong Machine at first, but then, he pressed the guy and like, oh, okay, name fits. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, he definitely proves worthy of the name.
Yes. It is also worth noting Hiro Saito is not related to Masa Saito, although they look very similar. Somewhat just how genes work, but somewhat also by design.
Mm-hmm.
Hiro got that haircut and dresses like that because of Masa Saito. So
Gotcha. It's kind of a Anderson family situation where they're like, hey, you kind of look like this guy. Let's name you after him.
very similar, yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I thought this was an excellent opener. Really fast paced and with a ton of creative spots and double and even triple teams. Everyone came off really well, but I'm particularly happy that we got to see a lot more of Akira in this match. He really got shortchanged last year, and it was great to see him show what he could do, as he is dang good.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing drop kicks in particular, and I really like the energetic and really painful looking way that he puts on single leg crabs. I don't know if we'll get to see any more of him in the future, but here's hoping. I really like the match storyline as well. The heavily costumed team of Liger, Akira, and Ayagi really struggled to get sustained offense for much of the match, often quickly being stopped by the sheer strength of Machine or Saito in particular, but they kept with it and used frequent change-ups to stop any of them from taking too much damage until they could turn things in their favor. They really built well to Ayagi's late match kickfest, teasing it repeatedly early on, and both teams did a really good job of fighting as teams overall, working together and always aware of what was going on with their partners. Tony and JR note quite accurately that little of the match happens dead center in the ring. They are frequently near one corner or the other to enable quick tags and double teaming. All in all, a really fun and exciting opener that showed me a lot of what these guys could do, and I really hope that we get to see at least some of them again.
Mm-hmm. A little bit after this show and the months following, Akira would move up to the heavyweight ranks, which basically means, putting like 10 pounds of muscle on, essentially. And he would enter a tournament that would be held for the vacant NWA tag team titles, doing a whole complicated thing with the NWA and WCW, which we'll cover probably on the show. I'm teasing for later. Notably, he would make one appearance. He's on the Clash of Champions show as part of the build-up to the pay-per-view.
Ah, gotcha.
Where his team, which is him and Hiroshi Hase, yeah, they qualify for the pay-per-view, which is the Great American Bash 1992.
Okay.
Unfortunately, he would get an injury between those matches.
Oh.
So he does not make pay-per-view.
That's too bad.
Yeah. The Japanese contingent ultimately on that show is Hiroshi Hase and Shinya Hashimoto. Still a really good team.
Yeah.
But I feel bad for the guy who doesn't to make, I believe would be his only real chance to be on WCW pay-per-view. Not counting this show, obviously.
That definitely sounds like a Clash of the Champions match I want to see.
Mm-hmm. While he's much less well-known than Masa Saito, Hiro Saito is actually notable historically in Japanese wrestling. He is one of the founding 3 members of the NWO Japan.
Oh, okay. He looks like a guy that would end up in NWO Japan, frankly.
Yeah. The caveat is that, as far as I can tell, he never made any appearances in America as part of that group.
Ah, okay.
From what I will tell, looking at the cage match, as thorough as I could get with that, he wrestled lots and lots of matches as part of the group in Japan, just never in American soil.
Okay. Tony praises the action and the high-risk maneuvers, and JR quickly builds up the next match and gives us a let's go back down to the ring.
By the way, it's weird that he plays off of what Eric said, even though Eric said it 2 months later.
This is true. I guess maybe Eric is reverse playing off of what he said.
Yeah, sure. Let's go with that.
It's like what would have come before what JR said.
Yeah, right?
Our second match is Michiyoshi Ohara and Shiro Koshinaka versus the Enforcers, Arn Anderson and Larry Zbyszko of the Dangerous Alliance. The referee is again Japanese ref number 1.
By the time this match aired, Anderson had won the WCW Tag Team titles twice. One time with Zbyszko, a fairly brief run as the Enforcers, and then more recently with Bobby Eaton, which he's actually was currently champion when the show aired.
Ah, okay.
So to be clear, that happened between January and March. So
Wow. It's still not quite keeping pace with 2000 level title changes, but pretty fast.
maybe this is common knowledge among wrestling people, but I didn't realize that Larry Zbyszko is married to one of Vern Gagne's daughters.
I did not know that.
Apparently, they've been married since 1988.
Well, good for him.
Yeah. Just want to tie things back to AWA one more time if I could.
Oh, there's a couple mothers coming, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
Koshinaka has a long blue coat that oddly made me think of a painter's smock. That can't be what they were going for.
I doubt it, no.
But I don't know, something about how he stands with it, I think, it just made it look more like that than like a cool biker coat or something.
Gotcha.
Anderson offers a hand, and Zbyszko insists that O'Hara or Koshinaka shake his hand, but Koshinaka smacks it away. It's Zbyszko versus O'Hara to start. O'Hara out-wrestles Zbyszko, but Zbyszko keeps holding back and preventing O'Hara from building momentum, and mouthing off constantly to his opponents and the ref.
He is very audible on the show, yes.
Super audible. I mean, Zbyszko is loud on any show, but especially when, it's with the more quiet Japanese crowd.
Yeah.
Arn in, and he eats an O'Hara Koshinaka headbutt, but he takes Koshinaka down, hits a flipping neck snap, and smoothly floats over on an arm takedown to tag Zbyszko, who gets 2 off an abdominal stretch roll-up, and continues mixing skilled mat wrestling and loudly complaining to anyone who will listen. I love Zbyszko. Arn back in, but Koshinaka escapes him with some drop kicks, but Arn backs away to stop any sustained offense. Tag to O'Hara, and Arn drives him down with a knuckle lock, as Zbyszko cheers for him to kick the punk. So Arn obliges. Arn and Zbyszko each engage in quick counter wrestling with O'Hara. Koshinaka in, and after some initial strikes, Zbyszko and Arn wear him down, including an Arn Rude Awakening, sans hip swivel. Zbyszko gets 2 with a suplex and tries a Boston Crab, but O'Hara breaks it up, so Arn in, and he slaps it right back on. Zbyszko rubs Arn's head for luck. I mean, to apply pressure.
Yeah, I get the idea, but it looks really silly because
yes.
So Arn is leaning forward towards the corner, and Zbyszko puts his hand up, like against his palm of his head.
The idea is he's pushing him to apply more pressure to the Boston Crab because of how they're facing, but it really looks like one of those, like, I'm mostly bald, rub my head for good luck.
Yeah, it's rubbing a Buddha statue. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Looked very funny.
Mm-hmm.
Arn gives him leverage on an abdominal stretch in turn, aided by O'Hara accidentally distracting the ref with protest. Zbyszko continues mouthing off, of course. Tag to Arn, but Koshinaka kicks him down and tags O'Hara, who gets 2 counts with an elbow drop and a Russian leg sweep, then hits a series of slams and elbow drops and a jumping elbow drop for 2. Koshinaka in, and he runs wild with butt bumps, as I regret Dusty not being on commentary. He would have a field day.
Yeah.
2 on Arn off of that, and a tag to O'Hara, who hits a cool over-the-shoulder suplex on Zbyszko, who wasn't legal, so Arn just kicks O'Hara.
Why not?
Arn whip, and Zbyszko knees O'Hara from the apron, leaving him easy prey for a beautiful Arn spinebuster for the 3 count and the win. Anderson and Zbyszko celebrate to cool rock guitar music as Koshinaka comforts O'Hara. Thoughts on this one?
I thought this is a really fun match. It showed the contrast in style and attitude for sure.
Mm-hmm.
They really play into just how disrespectful, well, simultaneously being disrespectful, but also wanting respect, as fusing as that is, as Zbyszko is.
Yes.
Like his nature. Anderson, it's basically playing into that. He's definitely not the same level as Zbyszko, but he's more willing to join in. He's easily swayed, let me put it that way. Like I said, Zbyszko says, kick the guy, I'm going to kick the guy.
Yeah.
It's about harder, yeah.
Like, yeah, okay, sure.
But you tell a nice story because O'Hara is definitely the rookie here, in case it's not obvious by his haircut. He's very early in his career. He's only about a year or so in his career.
I think it's 1.5 years about, yeah.
Yeah. Coming off of judo into wrestling, which is a pretty natural transition, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
It's an easier one for sure. This one really did a nice job of showing the American tag formula, particularly the cheating side of it,
Yes.
really well with the duo, which I really liked. It's one of the ones that's not an amazing match, but it's definitely one you could show to people who aren't necessarily huge fans of wrestling because it hits all the right beats and it's briskly paced and it's very enjoyable.
And if you're at all curious about who the bad guys are, 1 second of Zbyszko yelling at the top of his lungs at anyone who will listen will tell you that.
Yes,
Easy to follow.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I thought this was a good, solid tag match in the Anderson tradition, to absolutely no one's surprise.
Mhm.
A good story with this one of Koshinaka and especially O'Hara being very strong and good fighters, but not as canny or willing to manipulate the rules as Anderson and Zbyszko, who control most of the match and repeatedly prevent the Japanese team from getting momentum. Zbyszko makes great use of his mouth throughout, just constantly yelling at the other team, the fans, the ref, and even encouragingly to Arn, without ever slowing the match down. So study him, Scott Steiner.
Yeah.
Arn did his usual excellent tag work, keeping control, preventing tags, and contrasting his calm with Zbyszko's constant agitation. They make a really great team. Koshinaka was fun to watch with good strikes and hold counters, and O'Hara seemed quite strong in mat work, but maybe a little bit repetitive with his slams and elbow drops at times. It's understandable, though, as you noted, he's not even 2 years into his career, so I'd call it a strong showing.
Yeah.
And much like last year's Anderson match, it had a really good and well-timed ending spot that finished it off. Very fun match.
Hmm. I will say it's interesting. Obviously, the move you think of when you think of Arn Anderson is the spine buster,
Mm-hmm.
but I can't think of a ton of matches at the top of my head where he actually wins a match with a spine buster.
That's true. Yeah, it was a little rare for that to occur.
It seemed like the DDT was his go-to
Yeah.
because he'd really just spike you with that, like we saw last time in that Dustin Rhodes match where he turned on him pretty much immediately.
The Spinebuster tends to be his taking back control move.
Mm-hmm.
It's the big stunning hit that either sets up his finish or at least turns the tide of the match.
Yeah.
And the DDT is more often the one you see him to use to finish. Yeah, that's a good point.
But it's nice to see it used really well and actually be super effective.
Yeah, yeah. Tony praises the Dangerous Alliance's performance, and he and JR note that Zbyszko was very vocal. JR builds up the anticipation for the next match, featuring Dusty Rhodes coming out of retirement to team with his son Dustin. Let's go back to the squared circle, JR notes. We're getting further and further from our title, Al.
That's true, yeah.
So our third match is the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, and the Natural, Dustin Rhodes. Should we call them the Natural Dreams?
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Or the American Naturals, that's also kind of cool.
Oh, that's good too. Wow, yeah.
Yeah.
So many choices.
Versus Masa Saito and Kim Duck. The referee for this one is Japanese ref number 2, because it is a different person than the first 2 matches, but they still don't give his name.
Yeah, it's not the famous Japanese ref wearing red shoes, because at least people know who that is. Kim Duck, he had a actually pretty decent career playing a Hollywood heavy, a number of films in the 1980s.
Yes.
He appeared in such films as The Golden Child, Red Heat, and Blind Fury.
Mm-hmm.
When he was in NWA Florida, which is the theme on his partner, of course, he was managed by Boris Malenko.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, right. I had a Boris Malenko reference, unfortunately, since him being mocked for being dead by Chris Jericho. So it's a positive one.
Yeah, this is a better time for Mr. Malenko.
Yeah.
It is interesting. JR does mention Kim Duck's movie career in commentary, but he mentions him starring in Chuck Norris films, which I don't know if you did, Al, but I didn't find any on his IMDb page.
No, I mean, the only other film that really gets noted is Cage, which is him and Lou Ferrigno, and of course Red Brown. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was interesting. I think he just kind of maybe made an assumption there of martial arts. But
yeah. Masa Saito was very prolific in NWA Florida, again, like Kim Duck was. Notably, he was prolific there when Dusty was there, which I believe is mentioned in some passing and commentary.
Oh, yeah.
Notably, he won the tag titles multiple times, including a win over the Briscoe brothers.
Oh, that's cool.
A team we have mentioned since the very first episode.
Yeah, I mean, and they were good.
They were, yeah.
Like I remember us really liking them and being very sad that we have not seen them again since.
Yeah, it was just a timing thing because they basically got out of main wrestling and famously sold their shares to Vince McMahon, that whole Black Tuesday thing.
I just flashed back to that. Remember I forget which one of them it is, but one of them for the entire like match introductions, just standing
Mm,
very casually on the top rope,
yeah.
like balancing perfectly. Just like,
Yeah. I think it was Jack Briscoe, but I couldn't be sure. Yeah.
yeah.
They're kind of coy about it, understandably, but they will mention eventually that Dusty hasn't wrestled in about a year, which is the last time he wrestled before the show was for the WWF, which is why they don't mention it by name.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, they kind of act coy throughout about like he's been retired for a while, like implying it was years and years. You were sort of joking that they don't count his time in WWF, so that would explain that.
Yeah. Yeah.
He didn't exist during that time period, so who knows?
Dusty fell into a time portal and emerged in 1992.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's very cool to see Dusty and Dustin pacing the ring side by side during the intros. I know this is not the first time they teamed up, but it's really cool to see.
Oh yeah.
And in one of those huge coincidences that we could not possibly have planned on purpose if we tried,
Mm-hmm.
we ended up watching a show with a father-son team-up on the month of Father's Day.
That's true. Yeah.
Absolutely amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I do really wish that this show did not open with 3 tag matches in a row, though.
Yeah.
It's a bit much.
At the very least, if they say open with the Anderson Zbyszko one and then the 6-man match, as good as that is as an opener, that would have given you at least a slight variation. You would have had 2-on-2, then 3-on-3, then 2-on-2 again.
Yeah, yeah. But, I mean, yeah, just like you've got a bunch of singles matches in the show to just, alternate. That'd be preferable.
That'd be nice.
JR repeats the line from last show about Saito being a Japanese version of a Steiner. Tony and JR have a nice discussion of previous father-son team-ups in wrestling, name-dropping Vern and Greg Gagne, among others.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Dustin and Kim Duck start, though Saito and Dusty quickly both try to get in, but the referee imposes order. Dustin uses agility and speed to dominate early. He is a little early, or Kim's a little late, on a leapfrog, but thankfully Kim bends enough to avoid a Wyndham Dr. Death Starcade 1987 situation.
Yeah, yeah.
Dustin seems a bit sloppy throughout the opening. I wonder if he's nervous, either due to the crowd size or teaming with dear old dad.
Yeah, the crowd could definitely be a factor with anywhere between 50 and 60,000 people there.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, Dusty, I'm sure, is an encouraging person, but I imagine you feel a little bit of pressure tagging with a guy who's a legend, even if it's your dad. Or possibly, especially if it's your dad.
Yeah, that's both better and worse, yeah.
Yeah. Still, Dustin keeps a really good pace during this intro.
Oh yeah.
At one point, Saito charges in, but the ref just gets him to leave right away. He doesn't even do anything. It's great. JR and Tony wish WCW wrestlers that respected the WCW referees that much. Kim takes over with a headlock and punches, and Saito repeatedly refuses a tag, evidently feeling that Kim is doing fine. Dustin tags Dusty, and Dusty hurls Kim to the corner and elaborately dances around, taunting Saito, who finally gets in. JR and Tony note that the two have a very long history.
Mm-hmm.
Dusty wins a brawl, and Saito bows respectfully to Dusty, but when Dusty follows suit, Saito beats him up, pulling the hair to keep control. Saito goes for a tag, but Kim refuses now. Tony notes ring attendants at ringside for the Japanese team, and JR quips that their ring attendants don't break telephones over people's heads.
Yeah.
Dusty stuns himself with a headbutt, but suplexes Saito for 2. Saito tags Kim, who slaps on a nerve hold. Kim tags Saito, but Dusty ducks a clothesline, and Saito nails Kim. Dusty tags Dustin, who gets 1 with a diving lariat, and boldly fights both guys in their corner, only to swiftly regret it as he takes big kicks and punches and a double suplex. But the ref won't count due to the double team. I have never seen that.
Yeah, it's true.
Ever. JR says the US refs could learn from the Japanese ones, and Tony notes, so could the rules committee.
Wow.
The salt is strong on this show.
Yeah, right?
2 counts off a Kim pile driver, and Dustin tries a flying body press, but Kim ducks and Dustin bounces clean out of the ring and rolls onto the ramp. That always makes the spot look really good. I love that Dustin does that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And it emphasizes very nicely like how strong the hit was going to be if he had made it. So it like builds him up too, but it always looks great. Dusty stands in defense until Dustin recovers, and on a later Kim nerve hold, we get a terrific shot of Dustin struggling while a concerned Dusty looks on. Kim goes up, but Dustin Flair Kimmas him down for 2.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I can't blame you for that one.
2 counts off a Dustin elbow drop and some Saito suplexes, but Saito and Dustin collide and both go down. Tag to Kim, but Dustin aggressively attacks, drop kicks Kim for 2, and counters a whip with a kick and the bulldog for the 3 count and the win, as Dusty lunges across the ring to slug Saito to stop the save. Great ending spot there.
Mm-hmm.
Dustin and Dusty each get a nice trophy. They look like glass, so be careful with those guys.
Yeah, right?
Thoughts on this?
I thought this was an enjoyable match. I do think it was quite a bit slower, more methodical is the term people like to use in wrestling, than the previous 2 matches.
Yes.
Obviously, I'm not surprised. I mean, even at his peak, Dusty was not Liger as far as speed goes. And their opponents are not cruiserweights or light heavyweights, whatever you want to call them. So it's not surprising, but it's definitely notable.
You didn't see that one match between Dusty and Masa Saito where Dusty did the Dragon Rana?
I think I missed that one. No,
It's legendary, man.
yeah, I did not see that one. No,
In that it doesn't exist.
that's true. Notably, this match seems to be all about Dustin.
Mhm.
Like he really is the key to this whole match. He does, I'd say, 80% of the work on his team,
Mhm.
which again is not surprising given Dusty's out of semi-retirement and working a big show like this. It's interesting too because he doesn't do a whole lot like offense wise, but he does a lot of dancing.
Yes.
So he has the energy. He just uses it for dancing and not for like running or doing drop kicks or anything.
It makes sense that Dustin is kind of the focal point of their team, not only because of, Dusty just kind of coming out of a retirement, but also, I mean, Dustin is the active wrestler. So you kind of want to use this match to build him up.
Oh yeah, no, it totally makes sense. It's just notable that the balance is very different in this match than the other ones as well.
Yeah.
I will say this is the first time in the 3 tag matches where the partner ran in time to stop the save, which is really nice to see.
Yes.
The other 2 times they kind of ran in to hit, but the rest like, yeah, it's still 3. The wrestlers obviously know Hayes is the finish, so I'm not gonna fall off my pin because this guy ran up because that's the finish.
I think Dusty's timing there was really, really good. He moved faster than I think I've ever seen Dusty Rhodes move too, which was amazing.
Yeah.
It sold, as a lot of things in this match did, Dusty and Dustin caring about each other,
Oh yeah, for sure.
that they're father and son, not just teammates.
Mm-hmm.
I liked that spot for that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I guess ultimately I was hoping for some sort of more tag team work
Mhm.
between Dusty and Dustin. That's my only real, I don't know if say gripe, but my only regret about the match.
Yeah, they do, I think, like 1 or 2, like, hold the guy for the other one to hit spots, but that's about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's still an enjoyable match. Obviously, you just know what you're getting, know that's different than their matches. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just a different kind of match.
Yeah, some initial sloppiness aside, this was a really fun, hard-hitting match filled with big, heavy blows, intermixed with some quite nice and unusual storytelling, whether that be Kim and Saito's refusals to tag each other, or the ref not counting a pinfall because of a double team, or some really good father-son spots between Dusty and Dustin, with each feeling protective of the other and concerned and angry when the other was being hurt, right up to the ending with Dusty moving faster than I have ever seen him move to protect Dustin from Saito. They got a lot of mileage out of the relationship between the two in the storytelling, and out of Dusty's legendary reputation and big personality. Dusty and Masa Saito had some great interactions and looked really comfortable working together. No surprises, they were in a ton of matches in the late 70s and early 80s, so this was a meeting of old pals. It wasn't as technically complex as earlier matches, but some great storytelling and ferocity made up the gap, and it made it a fun watch.
Dusty would unretire quite a few more times.
Yes.
Notably, he would do it again in 1994, setting up a War Games match where he teamed up with Dustin. He also worked various indie shows through about 2007. His last major match is actually a singles match against Randy Orton in WWE television, part of an angle involving Cody Rhodes teaming up with Randy Orton. So tying to a different son back for a match like that.
Oh, interesting.
And according to Cage Match, Dusty Rhodes' final match would happen in 2010. It was a 6-man tag where he teamed up with Dustin and Cody in FCW, which he was at least partially managing / promoting as a training facility for WWE. So make perfect sense they'd work that out.
That's cool. Cool that he got to do one.
Absolutely.
JR and Tony build up the great win and how much the crowd loved Dusty, and JR agrees he was funky like a monkey,
Yep. That's
then throws to our next match. So our fourth match is Gigante versus Big Van Vader. The referee for this one is Bill Alfonso. Hey, I finally know the name of a ref.
yay. Blow a whistle.
Yeah.
Vader would wrestle a lot. It was called the CWA, or the Catch Wrestling Association, which is a wrestling company based out of Austria / Germany, so that general area.
Okay.
Run by Otto Vons. They would hold a tournament to create a new championship, the CWA IC title, or Intercontinental title. So it would come down to a match between Big Van Vader and Tatsumi Fujinami, of all people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So to summarize, this Austrian wrestling company held a match for one of their titles between an American and a Japanese man. I mean, why not? It's Intercontinental, I guess.
Tony notes that both men are very familiar to Japanese fans, and JR notes that Vader has held the IWGP World title multiple times. Vader is actually unmasked from the get-go here.
Mm-hmm.
I will note that this match is probably the first time Vader has ever looked small, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
After attempts to shove each other around go nowhere, Gigante gets Vader into the corner for strikes, but Vader reverses, beats him down in the corner, hits a corner splash that draws an "oh" from the crowd, continues the beatdown, and gets 2 with a jumping splash. There's a weird bit as he stalls for a while in the corner while seemingly adjusting his outfit.
Yeah.
I thought he was going for an object at first, but nothing really comes of it, so I think he just, something was not fitting right. Gigante gets a boot up on a charge and builds to the claw, but they end up in the ropes and Alfonso forces a break. After an awkward shoulder block, Vader goes, "Whoa!" and visibly throws himself to the ramp.
Yeah.
God bless you, Vader. They brawl on the entrance ramp and Vader hits a couple of falling fridges as Alfonso counts 20, giving us a double countout. Vader casually walks over, picks up his awesome helmet, and leans the stunned Gigante onto it, then activates it, spraying steam into his face. Then shoves him to the mat as Gigante clutches at his face. Tony says he may need medical attention. Thoughts on this one?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's a pray nothing match. Vader is amazing. Obviously, in case you're not clear my stance on Vader by now. But logistically, he can't do really much at all with Gigante. I'm pretty sure if this guy was like 6'5", Vader could literally body slam him, at the very least power slam him.
Mm-hmm.
But because of his long limbs, it makes that very difficult. Picking him up, he might just fall over you just because his arms and legs, poke up past you.
Yeah, he's not just big, he's like lanky big.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it makes things even more awkward.
Yeah. The most you could probably do, and I understand why this doesn't happen, is the spot people like to do to Vader where he jumps and you turn his jump into a power slam.
Yeah.
But picturing El Gigante climbing ropes, I can't see that, unfortunately. I'm sure he was a nice guy. I don't disrespect the guy at all, but he really could not do much in wrestling, unfortunately. Once you get past the visual, ooh, look at this giant guy, there's really nothing there, unfortunately.
He was not a Paul White Big Show type of character where he's big and mobile.
Exactly, yeah.
He was a big guy who was visually interesting, but not going to put on a really intricate match.
Yeah. The closest equivalent I'd say to body type and performance, and again, this is not until either person, is Giant Baba, who is a big name in All Japan, founded All Japan Wrestling, because he had the same thing where he was a giant, but it was all arms and legs, especially as he got older and he just couldn't attain muscle mass.
Yeah.
I will say it's notable that they booked a match between a guy famous for never holding his strikes back to the detriment of, I'm sure, of his opponents who did not like being hit very hard in the face and chest and legs and back and everywhere. And a guy who seemed like he wasn't sure he really wanted to hit you. Maybe the idea is supposed to be that because he's a giant, he's inherently super strong, which I don't think really bore out. So, so like he's like, oh, I gotta hold my punch back, or else I explode your head like Riccio. It's just funny that they put the extreme opposite working style together.
I do feel like Elegante's strikes look better in this match than they ever have, though.
That's fair.
And I kind of wonder, like, Vader has this tough reputation, so I wonder if maybe Elegante did feel more comfortable
It's very possible, yeah.
in a match against him than against someone much smaller.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm sure, like, yeah, giants are not super strong, but I'm sure, just from sheer weight and size and everything, you would, if you're his size, be concerned about potentially hurting someone
Yeah.
if you swung the wrong way. So I would imagine it probably would help you mentally to be like, okay, this guy's super tough.
Yeah.
He could take it.
And I'm sure they had just as much discussion as they could have about that as well.
Yeah. They're just being like, look, hit me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I can see Vader. Yeah, tell people they had to worry about it.
He'll ask everyone to hit him harder other than Ken Shamrock.
Yes. Well, and he taught Ken the way to hit people eventually.
Yes.
In that match. At least we get the great aftermath, which is the best part of the match for me.
It's really good, yeah. This was not as bad as I feared, largely due to it being roughly 75% Vader offense. But like I said, credit where credit is due. Elegante did heavier looking strikes than when I watched him in the past. The plot of this was pretty basic, and I don't like the count-out finish, but it did give us the genuinely unique spectacle of traditional big man Vader actually being the smaller guy in a match, and the crowd was clearly into it.
Mm-hmm.
The post-match spot with the helmet was one of the coolest Vader moments yet. So, while this was nothing special, I'll always remember it as the one where Vader steam cleaned his opponent's face.
Yeah. I will say this has been a great opportunity for Vader to do the moonsault, because he'd have the biggest target you can't possibly miss.
Yes.
Aim for 3/4 of the ring when he's stretched out in his back. You're perfect.
Yep. Yeah. Probabilities are definitely in your favor on that one.
Even knowing that this didn't end in pinfall, I get really nervous when they went to the claw spot. I'm like, oh, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But I like that it wasn't the finish for a number of reasons, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you loved this match, then you would have loved the WCW house show loop. Here, I'll make it fun for you.
Oh, no.
How many times do you think they featured a Vader El Gigante match on house shows?
Across, like, what period?
A couple months.
Okay, a couple months. 7.
Too low.
Oh, okay.
They featured this match 12 times.
Oh, okay.
By the way, this is 12 times after this match.
I almost went with 11, but I was like, that sounds a little high. So
no, sadly, I wish it was, but no. Notably, the last match between the two of them would also be El Gigante's last match in WCW, because he would disappear for a little while, come back in the WWF as Giant Gonzalez. As noted in the last show, he would come back to Japan for some inexplicable reason. There's a whole story about him supposedly going to come back in 1995, which we'll cover on the related show to that. It almost feels like the reward for Vader for having to do, at the very minimum, 13 matches with El Gigante is giving him the world title, which he got later that year.
Guess it does prove you'll do what the company wants you to do.
Yeah, that's fair.
We are about halfway through the show, so Eric Bischoff reappears in front of the show logo, claiming that Vader's attack set up an intense international situation. I assume there's a Tom Clancy novel about the aftermath?
Yeah.
Rainbow Six versus Vader would be an interesting contest. Harrison Ford as Jack Ryan on commentary.
Oh, yeah.
If any wrestler would be a clear and present danger or the sum of all fears, it's Vader.
got this all in there, didn't you?
Yes. When do I get to reference Tom Clancy on a wrestling show? Come on.
That's fair, yeah. Maybe if you're going to show with Cobra, you can reference Splinter Cell with that.
That's fair.
It is funny that they reference an international incident with Vader, because There is one that comes to mind, but that's a few years later.
Yes.
That involves choking and assaulting a Kuwaiti talk show host for insulting wrestling to his face.
Yes, yes. I remember that. Oh my gosh. Bischoff advertises Wrestle War 1992 and throws to the next match, Lex Luger versus Masahiro Chono, but is again forced to note that Luger was the then champion, as Luger was champ at the time, but this is being aired after Luger lost the title. It's kind of a spoiler for the match, though I guess if you're a WCW fan at the time, you know when Luger actually lost the title.
I will say, at least with that phrasing, it could still imply that Chono wins the match and wins the title.
And then like Luger wins it back and then loses it to Sting, or yeah.
Yeah, there's some leeway there, but yeah, realistic, I think they know people 2 months later are watching this know what happened. No reason to really rub it in, though.
So our fifth match is Lex Luger versus Masahiro Chono for Luger's WCW World Heavyweight Championship. The referee for this one is Tiger Hattori.
This sadly is going to be a trend for this and the next show, which is no Ric Flair, because of course Ric Flair famously was fired by Jim Herd late 1991 around the Great American Bash show. That led, of course, to the champion becoming Lex Luger, coming heel, and thus being the character we have now. And Luger is still in his title reign from that match, so he's been a strong champion for the company.
The much larger Luger shows off his power early on, but Chono quickly gets him down for the STF, and Luger immediately lunges for the ropes for the break. JR notes that Luger had claimed that there was no way someone so much lighter than him could beat him, and Tony says you do need confidence to succeed, but both discuss world champions that have been in Chono's weight range, name dropping Jack Briscoe in particular.
Mm-hmm.
JR also discusses Luger's collegiate football career, noting that he was kicked off the Miami Hurricanes. He says that's hard to do as they aren't known for their sportsmanship anyway. Did Miami beat Oklahoma recently? JR seems bitter.
They must have, yeah. That's all I could figure.
Despite some Luger strikes, Chono keeps control and works around an armbar. Luger sneaks in a headbutt and later goes for the eyes. Luger gets 2 counts with a forearm drop and suplex and power slams Chono, but Chono gets a neat backslide counter to the torture rack for 2. Huge Chono kick and he locks on the STF, but Luger slowly crawls to the ropes for the break. JR thinks Luger's height saved him there. Chono aggressively attacks, but Luger dodges a charge and he spills out, only to roll back in to roll Luger up for 2. Luger roll up for 2, and Chono again for a 2 that's so close, Tony actually thinks it was a 3 at first. Luger dodges a diving shoulder block and puts on the torture rack, but they spill out over the ropes and Luger puts on the torture rack outside as well. He can't win out there, but JR and Tony discuss whether he's trying for a countout. Luger back in, and Chono in at 18. Chono floats over a suplex, but Luger punts him in the crotch and hits a second rope double axe handle of all things for the 3 count and the win. In fairness, I think the 3 count is more off the punt to the nuts than anything that followed.
Yes, that's fair.
Thoughts on this one?
I thought this was actually pretty enjoyable. They had a nice clash of styles between the two of them. Luger is never the greatest technical wrestler, but I think that in a way that kind of works here because I think it keeps the match from being a bit dry. Like we had that experience with the different Shonen match, unfortunately. As good as it was, technically, there wasn't much heat to it. It was kind of dry as far as working holds and everything. So having the story be that, he can take down and lock Luger in a hold, Luger can just flip him over and just slam him to the ground really hard, worked pretty well for me as a story.
Yeah.
They definitely worked the idea that Luger is a heel as well, which was enjoyable. I'm probably a little confused by the whole original Torture Rack spot. I think it's both a look accidental, but he walks his way towards the rope for no apparent reason. It seems like they're going for I'm bouncing him down the hole, and he kind of shifted his weight and fell over. But it feels very intentional.
I mean, Luger has a bit of a history with Torture Rack accidental spots.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, I would wager that was meant to look a lot more accidental than it did. Yeah,
because it's the measured nature of it. It's like walk here, step, there we go.
Mm-hmm.
The actual fall looked really good, and I like the story that he put him in the rack outside. Hoping he just couldn't get up and back in the ring.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed what they got, necessarily loving how they got there. There's a thing in wrestling where you can tell when someone does their big move and they don't win for one reason or another, either they're going to lose because they hit their big spot and didn't win, or in this case, they're going to win in a kind of random fashion, which does kind of work. They mentioned Luger doing a DT earlier, which is interesting because, yeah, I can't picture him doing that hold or that move much in his wrestling career. So it's interesting to see that as well.
Yeah, it's always neat to see guys pull out a move that they don't normally do when it's like a special occasion.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, I'm generally a fan of the more clean finish, but I think with the story of this and the fact that there's no way they're going to put the title on Chono, I don't mind this blatantly cheap finish by Luger because he's this blatantly cheap heel. That's definitely a thing he'd been doing in the company to keep his title, so it makes absolutely perfect sense.
Yeah, yeah. And he does at least like do a move after the punt to the crotch,
Yes.
even if it's a double axe handle. Yeah, I thought this was a solid power match with a good mix of strikes and big slams, with the requisite Luger selling. He was actually not as noticeable as I was expecting with the quiet crowd, though.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he'd be just like super clear, but it was just kind of the same level as a normal Luger match.
Mm-hmm.
They do a good job of having a progression of spots in this one, learning each other's big spots and countering them, and I particularly like the roll up sequence late match with each catching the other off guard for different reasons, and the storytelling around the STF. As we mentioned last year, the desperation of the person caught in the hold really builds a hold up, and this match is another great example of that.
Absolutely, yeah.
The ending is a little bit flat. It's too bad that they couldn't tie things more directly to the torture rack, even if they didn't want Chono to give up. Like, more visibly showing him injured by the one Luger did outside the ring, or even just actually letting it be a countout due to Luger's nefarious plan.
Mm.
It's a case where I would have been fine with that, with Luger just having clearly intentionally injured Chono outside. Still, these two did quite well together, and it was good to see Luger in a different setting and against a different opponent than the norm.
Yeah, then there's this story about Luger that at a certain point, late '91, it became clear that he wasn't planning to re-sign with the company, and it wasn't necessarily interested in doing more work than was required. Because notably, outside of this match, he's involved in the finish of Starrcade '91 Battle Bowl situation. They have Sting beat him and set up Super Brawl, which is coming up after this match took place. But he didn't do any house shows or any other shows
Mm-hmm.
between those points. So basically, he came in, worked the show to set up his big title loss, and then he worked the title loss, and that's it. And of course, they talked about it last time. They want him to work Japan, and he just didn't feel like it last year, and they couldn't make him. So it's interesting that they found a way to make him do it this time. So I'm wondering if maybe if he had decided to come in 1991, we've gotten more over the top Luger selling for kicks and striking, maybe perhaps.
Yeah, yeah.
That said, he did really commit to the gimmick. He really works the heel stuff, especially in the latter half. So I'm not saying he didn't work hard, but maybe there's a certain mental aspect to it, I'd say.
Yeah, yeah, maybe.
Chono would go on to win the vacant NWA title, now separate from the WCW title, of course, and New Japan. They would put that up for grabs in the G1 Climax, their big tournament show they would do every year. Luger would, of course, join the WBF, the World Bodybuilding Federation, not the World Wrestling Federation. Because by all accounts, he was not interested in doing any more wrestling, which again maybe points to his feelings about wrestling as a whole at this point in time. But he would famously get injured in a motorcycle accident, breaks his arm on the one side. He famously gets steel reinforcements in it, which becomes part of his gimmick in WWF. By the time he's recovered from his injury, the WBF is no longer a thing due to government going after steroid testing and all these guys quietly leaving the company mysteriously for no reason. So, of course, he'd become part of the WWF by the time this next show would take place. The other thing I noted, I can't 100% confirm this, but I had skimming through his match record, I couldn't find one. As far as I can tell, this seems to be Luger's only match in Japan.
Maybe he just didn't like international travel.
Yeah, not judging from that, but it's just interesting that if this is his only Japanese match, it's very notable in that regard.
Yeah, yeah. Tony notes that Luger just showed Japan what the US has known for years. He'll do anything to hold on to a title. JR says his unpopularity is international.
Oh.
This show is so salty it might as well be soy sauce.
Mm-hmm.
So our sixth match is Tatsumi Dragon Fujinami versus Riki Choshu. for Fujinami's IWGP Heavyweight Championship and Choshu's Greatest 18 Club Championship. The referee for this one is Tiger Hattori.
So famously, Riki Choshu would win the IWGP title from a man we've sadly only featured once, which is Salman Hashimikov.
Oh, he was good.
One of the two very good Russian wrestlers we saw in the One Starcade 1990?
1990, yeah.
Yes, okay.
The Pat O'Connor tournament one, yeah.
I'd noted that I always get 89 and 90 mixed up because they're both tournament shows and you watch them one after another.
Yes.
So I do my best to keep those straight. Hashimikov, of course, famously beat Vader for the title, which is a match that is around and online. You should definitely check out.
Yeah, I need to look that up.
It's very intense. There's a lot of big men slamming each other. And of course, the duo, that being Chosu and Vader, would trade the title throughout the summer as well. As I said before last year's show, Fujinami had very recently won the IWGP title before his match with Flair. Well, he has held on that title since that show. So he is reigning champion, through almost full calendar year.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Choshu is out first to the show theme. He has quite a mullet.
Yeah, that's sure.
JR builds him up as one of the first to use the Scorpion Deathlock. JR also notes him as a former Olympian.
Mm-hmm.
Fujinami gets a hard rock and flute theme this year that sounds very Xenosaga.
Yeah, I can do that, yeah.
And has another awesome dragon-themed robe. JR builds this up as a major rivalry, but a respectful professional one. Tony and JR discuss the Greatest 18 Club, and for more on that, see our show intro last time.
Mm-hmm.
Streamers are thrown, as for many matches, and I have to note that the staff and the wrestlers are really good at getting them cleaned up fast. If this were a WCW show, they'd be all over the map for the duration.
Yeah, right?
The show logo shows up to block out part of the ring for some reason. Weird.
Yeah, I didn't get that.
They trade holds and skilled counters as JR and Tony start talking all about Antonio Inoki, who trained Fujinami. Funny, it feels like there would have been a great opportunity to do that earlier in the WCW cut Inoki's match.
Yeah.
Genius.
Mm-hmm.
Choshu shows greater strength, and JR says that his size is an advantage now, but it might hurt him as the match goes on, because Fujinami has a reputation for conditioning. Fujinami slaps Choshu in the corner, but Choshu keeps his cool. Fujinami keeps a hold on a little long as Choshu gets to the ropes. He's playing subtly heel for this, but very lightly.
Mm-hmm.
Choshu works the back and chest and puts on the Scorpion Deathlock, but surprises JR by eventually letting go even though Fujinami hadn't reached the ropes. He goes back to work, but Fujinami hits the Dragon Screw Leg Whip. Again, too bad Dusty is not on commentary.
Mm-hmm.
Then locks on his own Scorpion Deathlock. I love how both of them put that hold on. It's very, mechanical.
Mm-hmm.
3 distinct steps rather than, smoothness and fighting that you'll sometimes see from Sting.
Yeah.
Choshu makes the ropes. Fujinami viciously kicks Choshu, lands a diving knee drop and a pile driver, and locks on the Dragon Sleeper. Choshu manages to just catch the ropes with one leg, but Fujinami just puts the hold back on. A second break, and Fujinami goes for it again, but Choshu, quite tired of that, kicks him in the head. So Fujinami locks on the octopus hold instead. Choshu levers free, and Fujinami goes up top, but gets superplexed. Choshu tries his lariat, but Fujinami drop kicks him for 2. Fujinami back on the attack, but Choshu hits 2 powerful Saito suplexes, stuns Fujinami with a lariat, hits another lariat from behind, and finally fells the dazed Fujinami with a third. Funny bit from Tony on commentary. Fujinami's still standing. Oh, there he goes.
Yeah.
Choshu covers for the 3 count and the win. JR builds up the series of high-impact moves from Choshu at the end there, and Tony praises Fujinami for staying up as long as he did, which serves nicely to build up both guys. Choshu for his power and Fujinami for being so tough that it took all of that to take him down.
Mm-hmm.
JR praises both men for a clean match and hopes everyone learns something from them. Choshu gets a trophy and both belts, and then gets an enthusiastic handshake from Fujinami. They hug and raise their hands together, as Tony praises their sportsmanship. I feel like Tony and JR both want to go call Japanese matches from now on.
It does feel like it, yeah. JR for sure.
Such a wonderful break.
Yeah.
Thoughts on this?
This is a very strong technical match, as you'd expect from both men. especially in Fujinami, who we saw a real good taste of that last year. This is their, believe, our first real show with Chosu, so it's really interesting that we get him in such a high profile match. And again, a match that we were both expecting not to be on the show. We're like,
Yes.
I mean, we're like, it's just like weird that you cut this match for both their big titles. Then it comes up like, oh, I guess they didn't.
Yeah, both. Oh, okay. Thought we weren't getting this, but sure.
A happy surprise, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
They did a really good job with the match of showing the experience of these two and how well they know each other. I mean, so much of the way they fight out of holds, the way they escape. Obviously, the great bit where Chosi goes for Larry and he gets drop kicked by Vietnami is really good.
Yes.
Because the drop kick is not like an amazing move, but doing it late in a match like that, and then with that precise, the timing of that was so good.
The dropkick is one of those moves that I think always looks really good as a counter.
Yes.
You feel the impact of it.
Mm-hmm. For sure, yeah. Yeah, it's definitely really good showing for Chosu. I'd heard of by reputation. I referenced him on an earlier episode of being an Olympian from 1972. But yeah, definitely a really good way to see him for the first time. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Fujinami, of course, is great as well. It's nice that we're still in this point where this is like the big match for the titles, and it really is contending for like the best match on the show. In contrast, sadly, to later WCW shows in like say late 90s, 98, 99, where the biggest match in the show is underwhelming because either people are too past their prime or are Dennis Rodman
Yes.
and can't do anything. It just you go, oh, this is okay. Anybody watch 10 other guys really impressed earlier and like, wait, why are these guys not in the main event? This is a great example showing these are guys that really deserve to be in the main event because they are so good at their jobs.
Yes.
I was worried that a match like this, given that so much was built on their history that I really don't know other than reading Wikipedia saying, oh yeah, they fought this time, and then mentioning, oh, Fujinami's back injury and chose to take the title and all that. I was worried it wouldn't hold up without firsthand knowledge of that, but it's really good.
Yeah.
It's a funny running thing throughout this match as well. It's brought up earlier, but really gets heightened in this one. That JR seems really offended by the name Dragon Sleeper because it's not actually sleeper hold.
Yeah, yeah.
Because he's like really defensive about it. I'm like, dude, it's okay.
He's always really careful to point out that it is a submission move, not working like a normal sleeper.
Yeah.
A sleeper's purpose is to make you unconscious.
Yeah.
The submission hold is to make you tap out from pain. So,
it doesn't know we have the match at all, which is a funny thing. Because it comes up in the next match as well. He's like, remind you again, it's not a sleeper hold. Like, okay, JR, I believe you.
Yeah, I thought this was an excellent, carefully crafted and plotted match that clearly shows the length of the feud between these two wrestlers. They came off as guys who knew each other extremely well, cautious of each other in the early going as they knew well what each other could do, refusing to be drawn in by taunts, and making really good use of their entire arsenal of moves and sometimes each other's, while countering the biggest weapons of their opponent if they were brought out too early. As JR noted, the match was quite clean, as even though Fujinami did play subtle heel for parts of it, he did so without actually breaking rules or even pushing them all that much. He just maybe showed a tad less respect for Choshu than Choshu showed for him, so it allowed Choshu to look like the bigger man, until the post-match anyway, when both come off very well.
Mm-hmm.
The ending spot was really cool, letting Fujinami look tough as nails even in a loss without devaluing Choshu's big lariat, since it did, in the end, do the job.
Yeah.
It felt like an appropriate ending for a match in a mega feud. And like you, Al, I felt like this match did a good job of making me understand that this was a pairing that had a ton of history, even without me having read that history or like seen it.
Yeah.
It's notable to be able to get that across just in your performance.
Chosu would hold on to the titles until August, where he lose them to the Great Muta. So Muta would have one title defense in September, so a month after he wins the titles. He's defending them both titles simultaneously. At the end of the match, he goes, oh, by the way, I'm not going to keep this Greatest 18 championship anymore. He says it nicer than that, obviously, and in Japanese, but basically the point is he's only going to be defending one title from this point on, and that's the end of that title. But hey, it had a good run, all the same. Especially given that it was Antonio Inoki's WWF belt, I believe, technically.
Yeah, the actual belt is not intended to be the same title, I don't think,
Correct.
but it's
It's literally the same title, but
the
it's
physical belt.
yeah, same belt, but yeah. Yeah, it goes from basically we need a Inoki to have a belt, so here's a belt for him. It's really all that mattered about it. To then being the confusing but still really well respected Hall of Fame belt, which they tried to explain briefly in commentary. Oh, a little note about longevity. At Wrestle Kingdom 17, which took place in 2023, they held a memorial 6-man match featuring older Japanese wrestlers honoring the then recently late Antonio Inoki.
Oh, okay.
Featured in that match, Fujinami, still wrestling in 2023.
Oh my, wow.
Yeah.
I can picture that. I mean, he has one of those styles, like I think a Flair and that sort of wrestler that is more technical.
Yeah.
As long as you avoid like major injuries, you can kind of keep that going more than a power wrestler can.
Yeah. Or like a Dory Funk Jr., for instance, who wrestled way past what most people think would be a logical stopping point. But yeah, I was looking through that. I'm like, Wrestle Kingdom, like, oh yeah, he's on Wrestle Kingdom 17. Wow, yeah.
That's amazing.
So I just moved him at that, about 31 years after this show.
We cut back to JR and Tony praises Choshu as tough as nails and builds the next match as a dream tag match. JR notes the unusual setup as Sting will be fighting the Steiners, his friends, and teaming with Muta, who has been his foe. Let's go down for the introductions, he says. Where would we do that, JR? Perhaps to some sort of squared circle or ring, maybe?
Something with ropes, perhaps.
No?
Yeah.
Oh. They really don't ever give us our title on this one. It's sad.
Yeah, all right.
So our final match is Sting and the Great Muta versus the Steiner brothers, Rick and Scott. Referee for this one is Bill Alfonso.
So they would, of course, note on commentary that they think it's the first time that Sting and Muta have teamed up, but that is in fact not true, as they noted in the last show. Weirdly, they went from, we have this blood feud, you cheated by spitting mist in my face while I was jumping at you. So I'll fight you one time on a house show, non-televised, and then I'll team up with you twice, just for fun. I'm over whatever happened.
I mean, it's Sting.
Yeah. He said, I'm sorry. Okay, I believe you. This once. Yeah. Also worth noting that Muta, in his non-gimmick form, as his actual name Kiji Muto, is co-holder of the IWGP tag titles with Hiroshi Hase.
Oh, cool.
Who sadly was cut from the show.
Yep. Still bitter about that.
Yeah. Also, even though there's no issue of tape delay with that, because they were champions, even when the show aired in America, they don't have the belt. So it's weird. It's weird. So like no one wants to have their belts except Luger, I guess.
That is a little odd, yeah.
Luger and I guess Fujinami and Chosu, yeah. There's like a bin in the back for your belts. Don't take them outside. Just put them in the bin. Like over here down of the show.
We actually get entrances for this match.
Yeah.
The Steiners are out first, and we even get a stats screen showing their height and weight. Scott is 7 centimeters taller than Rick, but Rick is 10 kilograms heavier, in case you needed to know that.
Yeah.
Absolutely bizarre to have these only start up now in the final match.
Yeah, right?
JR, giving the Steiners history and covering their college education at University of Michigan, sounds somewhat defensive when he notes that they both graduated. Like that was in doubt.
I know certain commentators like to make fun of the Steiners, thinking that they weren't very smart, so maybe...
Yeah. But he's not with Jesse Ventura or Bobby Heenan right now. He's sitting there with Tony Schiavone.
That's true, yeah.
Tony's probably like, yeah, I know.
It is funny that he mentioned that both of them got degrees in education, because, of course, Rick Steiner is, I believe, still on the school board in his hometown.
I think so. Sting is out next, and sadly, the Captain Sting America jacket does not make a reappearance this year. Instead, he's got this slightly strange, shiny, wavy striped coat.
Yeah.
Weird look.
Mm-hmm.
He is 2 centimeters taller than Scott and the same weight as Rick, incidentally. Japanese text also informs that he's the former WCW World Heavyweight Champion, per Google Translate, which is funny because as of the air date of the pay-per-view version, he's again the current WCW World Heavyweight Champion.
I love the freeze frame shot of him that mid dive outside the ring as well.
Yes. Muta is last out, separate from partner Sting, preceded by performing acrobats. Very cool. Muta actually wins the glitter contest tonight with his glittery blue ninja gear. He is 5 centimeters taller than Rick, but the lightest guy in the match by 8 kilograms.
That tracks.
The Japanese text proclaims him one of WCW's top heels,
Huh.
per Google Translate. That is actually what it says there.
All right. Yeah.
I was not expecting that. Kayfabe is dead. JR notes Muta's different personalities as Great Muta and Kiji Muto, but manages to make it sound like he changes personality based on whatever he happens to be handed as entrance gear.
Yeah, it's weird. They did like, oh, he puts on his face, but he changes. I'm like, well, why would he put it on then if he knows it changes his personality?
Yeah. It sounds involuntary when it's clearly not.
Yeah, it's like he goes to take a nap and someone paints him.
It's the prank. Yeah, it's a prank. They just
Yeah.
maybe Great Muta is just Muta being ticked off because someone painted his face backstage. Maybe that's all it is.
It started from that old prank people do where they like draw like cat whisk on your face.
Yes, exactly.
And just went from there.
He dubs Sting and Muta brothers in paint due to their shared face paint gimmicks. Muta sprays blue mist as we start up. Muta and Scott start, and Scott out-wrestles Muta, but Muta out-kicks Scott.
That tracks.
Tags to Rick and Sting, and Rick gets the advantage, hits a Steiner line, and hits the top rope bulldog. It gets 2. The commentators point out that the Steiners are trying to end this really fast.
Yeah.
Sting gets revenge with a heavy clothesline. Stinger line?
Yeah.
He goes for the Stinger splash, but Rick dodges and he eats turnbuckle. Scott in for a double underhook powerbomb, then a tilt-whirl slam for 2, but Sting floats over a tombstone piledriver and hits his own. Stinger call. A Sting elbow drop for 2, and Rick saves, surprising JR as Sting hadn't done anything illegal. I didn't know that tag saves were a moral judgment.
Yeah, apparently so.
Sting holds Scott's arm for a Muta top rope elbow, and if this was the 80s, Muta would win right there.
Yeah.
Muta power drive elbow, but Scott escapes an armbar and hits a devastating belly-to-back suplex. Scott and Rick trade off wearing Muta down, including a Scott top rope Steinmoen drop.
Yeah.
I've decided that's the name of it.
Oh, I like Michigander drop personally, but that's...
And get 2 with a Rick release German suplex, their double team suspended top rope elbow, and a vicious Rick corner ram and kick. Scott even uses the Dragon Sleeper. Muta Saito suplex, and he tags Sting, who beats the crap out of Rick and hits the Stinger splash. Muta in, unclear if there was a tag, but Rick counters the handspring elbow with a very smooth belly-to-back suplex for 2, as Sting saves. I love he catches him, does not even have a hint of putting him down there.
No.
Just catches him, smoothly rotates, boom.
Well, I like that it's an interception move as well, because he steps out of the corner.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's explaining why he's not taking the impact when he crashed into the corner.
Yes.
He's cutting him off just for the last jump.
Yeah, it's really, really nicely done.
Mm-hmm.
Rick tags Scott and goes to yell at Sting, despite Rick making a save earlier. Everyone brawls, and Sting stuns Rick with a turnbuckle ram, then double teams Scott with Muta. Rick recovers, so Sting hurls Muta bodily into him to send both of them out.
Yeah, this was a regular WCW show. We'd have to debate about whether it's a disqualification or not to throw your own partner out.
Does he get a reverse disqualification? Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's his partner, yeah.
You threw a guy out, but he's your partner. So how does that count for you?
Yeah. Sting and Muta dive on the Steiners in turn, and back in, Sting and Muta high-five as evidently Muta is totally cool with being used as a human weapon.
Yeah.
The Steiners surprise them with stereo diving clotheslines. Sting counters a Scott tilt-a-whirl with a victory roll, as Rick belly-to-belly suplexes Muta and pins him, but Alfonso counts Sting's pin of Scott for the 3 count and the win. As far as I could tell, Muta and Scott were the legal men, so neither pin was technically legal.
True, yeah. I think that's right.
Rick thinks that he's won, but Alfonso explains that Sting and Muta won, and raises Sting and Muta's hands. There's tension for a few moments, but then the Steiners graciously accept their loss, extending hands to Sting and Muta, and it's handshakes all around. Thoughts on this one?
As a whole, I think this is a really good match. I just think it could have been a really great match. There was just little things here and there keeping the match from being a really well-executed dream match. Still getting it is really nice. Again, even if you put aside the fact that Sting and Muta have teamed together before, they still have nowhere near the tag team experience as Rick and Scott.
Mm-hmm.
So that absolutely goes to them. So you get a nice version of the story we had in the very first match. Although I don't think that's planned at all. It's just a coincidence the way we watched the show. It's the two non-tag wrestlers actually winning out with their ability and strength over the tag team, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
If you're looking, this purely on paper, you have Sting hits just about all the big moves. He does stuff he doesn't do too often, like the tombstone counter. I don't think it's intentional, but even back in 1992, we're getting little teases of a Sting Undertaker match that never came to be.
Yeah.
Muta gets his dives in. Muta does the miss for the intern, but not, I guess, because he's sort of playing face here, despite what the text on the screen said, apparently.
Yes.
He doesn't miss the counter at any point.
Maybe he knew he was on thin ice with Sting after last year. So
Yeah. It definitely would have made the post-match thing a little awkward if he'd used the miss to help get a pinfall. And they're like, yeah, thanks, buddy. They're cool. But yeah, my problem with this match is that sudden, supposedly a double pin finish just kind of comes when the match really feels like it's still building up to the finish.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like an abrupt stop. Not a bad stop. It's not like going back to Bash at Beach 97, where we're getting a decent match with Booker T and Bret Hart, and suddenly, boom, chair shot, match over.
Right, yeah.
It's not that. It's not that bad. But yeah, it's disappointing in the sense that it's well done, but it's disappointing because I was thinking they were building up still, and it's like, oh, we're both in the ring, both from pins, and oh, okay, match is over now.
Yeah.
Putting aside the fusion of who's league or not, I think you're right. I think neither of these fans really made any sense. But I know Rick clearly doesn't see the slam counter by Sting. But as he went for the pin, he can see the ref not looking his direction.
Yeah.
The ref is clearly turned away from him. So he's like, like, why do you think the ref countered your pinfall? He wasn't even watching you, man.
He takes the expression "eyes in the back of your head" quite literally.
Oh, okay. he hears the mat being patted. Oh, must be for me.
Yeah.
Again, putting aside whether who's league or not, allowing a pin to be taking place while the other two guys will fight in the ring, it's also kind of interesting.
Yes, yeah.
Flies in the face of the really strict officiating from the Japanese referees.
Yes, as the commentary team noted, the WCW refs could learn some things.
Yeah. So I still a good match. I'd still recommend it if you're a fan of the teams or the people match separately. But for me, it ended too early, and I don't know what the point of having this abrupt finish, which I guess other than tease more matches, like why in a match like that?
Yeah. I imagine that like the idea is, hey, look how equal these guys are because they got simultaneous pins.
Mm-hmm.
But there's got to be better ways to do that.
Yeah.
Unsurprisingly, this had awesome action.
Mm-hmm.
A hard-hitting, fast-paced match filled with big moves and powerful strikes, but with an atmosphere of respectful competition rather than the blood feud that normally prefaces such intensity. Things did get heated as the match went on, but it felt like tempers flaring due to wanting to win, not due to either side having a personal problem with the other. They did well with that delicate balance.
Mm-hmm.
I really like both sides getting to their big moves quite early. As with last year's Sting Muta match, they made it clear that they knew each other well and knew what it would take to win, so they weren't holding back.
Yeah.
But as you noted, the ending is pretty confusing. And for me, the main problem with it is it results in a really flat finish.
Yeah.
Without a really big reaction. They all just kind of stand around confused until Alfonso declares the win. And even then, they and the crowd seem underwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a bad finish, like you said. It's just not one I would pick for this match.
Yeah.
Especially not as the main event of the show.
Mm-hmm. And it stands out because the Chosu Fujinami match had this really strong, well built up finish and celebration afterwards. And this is like, oh, yeah, I guess he won.
Yeah, I think I probably would not have as big a problem with this finish if this were not the last match.
Yeah.
If we reverse the orders of the last two matches, then I think it would be maybe a little stronger.
Mm-hmm.
In defense of the counting of the pinfall, it's possible that Sting was the legal man on his team still because it's very unclear from the camera work whether Muta tags in before the elbow spot.
Right. And as mentioned on the other show, there may have been some cuts as well, so not as evident as the previous one too, so that could be a factor as well.
Overall, though, it's a really enjoyable watch, filled with some great stunts and perfectly timed and smooth action, so I really enjoyed it.
Mhm. The tag team of Muto and Hase would lose their titles to the team of Big Bam Vader and Bam Bam Bigelow, who would, of course, be the champs that the Steiners would be fighting for the right to fight at Wrestle War 1992, a show we've covered.
With the match with Fujinami and Izuka, right?
Correct, yes, the one.
That's cool.
There is a match involving Sting and Vader in Sting's Future.
Yes.
A very painful one, as I recall.
We get a recap video covering some of the night's big moments. Haven't seen one of those since the early Starcades, I think.
Yeah. When it comes weirdly, because they talk about how we're going to replay the finish, show you what happened, and then they replay like the show.
Yeah.
It's so strange.
We get clips from the Rhodes versus Saito and Kim Duck match, Elegante versus Vader, which JR describes as not pretty at all.
Yeah.
And then Sting and Muta versus the Steiners. Apparently nothing else happened tonight.
No.
JR thinks that Muta and Rick were legal, but I'm almost 100% sure Scott had tagged in. We cut back to Eric Bischoff, and he nods to the controversy as well, but says it was an exciting tag team match. Bischoff advertises Wrestle War 1992, building up the War Games match and the Dangerous Alliance, and signs off. And Super Show 2 is done. Bischoff really speaks kind of like a news anchor in that last segment. It's not like his later commentary or what he sounded like earlier in the show. But I wonder if it's just because it's pre-recorded that it comes off a little bit odd.
Maybe a little bit, yeah.
So overall thoughts on Super Show 2?
It's overall a very strong show. It's got a lot of enjoyable matches. It's got some really good moments to it. The only real negative about it is that it feels like it's being treated like a fancy afterthought by WCW because it takes place in January but aired in March, and they introduce it by telling you it's all in the past. So it sort of puts you in the mindset of, well, this happened already, so I know what happens later. So that said, there are some really good tag matches, whether they're just really well worked by some of the people, like the Anderson Zbyszko tag match or the opening 6-man match, or there's a sort of really interesting appeal, like seeing Dusty and Dustin together, which is always great. The singles matches they throw near the end are both really good. Chono and Luger is a very interesting clash of styles that I think works, even if maybe Luger's heart's not in it, he still performs really well. Likewise, Shosu and Fujinami really, really delivers. Again, showing that these guys really know each other very well and really deserve to be in this main event spot because they really work hard and earned it. And again, the main event match is a very enjoyable spectacle, which is a shame that's kind of a sudden, abrupt and flat finish like that, which puts not a real damper on the show, but it would be nice at the end in a more exciting, upbeat kind of moment, like with the previous match before it. But yeah, it's still a very enjoyable show. It's obviously hard to find because of various legal reasons, but it's worth tracking down, especially if you're a fan of this era of wrestling. You get to see matches and duos you may not ever see before or since. And even though a lot of it's cut, there's still a very interesting Japanese feel to the show. So it's unique in that regard.
As far as the action went, this was just as much fun as the first Super Show, with some really, really good contests with performers both familiar and not. Presentation-wise, not so much.
Yeah.
Where the first one was presented akin to a live show, cut down, but generally not feeling cut down much, this one has more noticeable edits that, while they leave the matches intact, strip out much of the ceremony that I loved from the previous year, and thanks to being much more blatant about the show being in the past, hurt the drama of some matches, in particular Luger versus Chono. I could have done with a better balance of matches on the show as well. 4 tag matches, even if all were good, was a tad much, and I could definitely have done with a better layout. 3 tag matches in a row, then 3 singles matches, then the final tag. I know that's the order they happened on the actual show, no resorting this year, but I definitely have preferred they alternate match types to keep things fresher. There's no bad matches on this one, though, and I'm counting Vader versus Elegante there, though largely because of Vader in the helmet spot.
Oh, yeah, sure.
There's absolutely no promo content at all this year, which adds to the perfunctory feel of the show. Don't get me wrong, I like these shows to be about the action, and I get that these are international shows being released over here months later, but it still feels strange for us not to get say, a Sting promo about how it feels to team with longtime nemesis Muta, or comments from Vader about the helmet incident. Cue next year's show having like 20 promos if this follows the usual pattern when I comment on this stuff, of course.
Yeah.
Fortunately, the commentary was again really strong. I'm very much liking the Tony and JR pairing.
Mm-hmm.
This year, it felt like they traded off a little bit more on who was doing the lead commentary match by match, but they continued to have really smooth interaction and good, deep discussions about the matches and wrestler strategies and personalities. Impressive considering they are not dealing with the wrestlers they're most familiar with in most of the matches. They make a good team.
Mm-hmm.
Production, well, as noted, feeling somewhat underwhelming for much of the show, was capable, and except for a tag or two, cameras were always on target and got some truly great shots at certain points in the show, like showing the interaction between Dusty and Dustin, or some nice shots of Muta's acrobats. There's some good character moments and major stunts on this show, and we get a good view of the majority. All in all, this one is a fun watch, if not quite as fun as the first show, just because of the editing and production that make things a little bit disjointed at times and dampen the drama of the show. Still, much like the first show, this gave us a really enjoyable, action-heavy show with a lot of good matches featuring less familiar performers.
Yeah, there's a through line in the first show where they build up to the Fujinami Flair match, which has direct implications on WCW television, and that's sadly lacking here, unfortunately.
Yeah, you can tell this is more of a Japanese show where some WCW guys are on as guests, rather than still being a critical part of WCW programming.
Mm-hmm.
Match of the night and MVP. So, Al, what is your match of the night?
All right, so there's some pretty strong contenders. The opening 6-man is good. The following 10 match I also really enjoyed. I still like the Dusty Dustin match, but I don't think it quite makes my final slotting just for the overall action. But I absolutely get your view on how they sort of appeal with them together, so I like that. Shonen and Luger I really liked, and again, we've talked before, I'm kind of disappointed with the overall feel of the main event match, but I can't say it's a bad match at all. For me, I think ultimately probably ends up being the Chosu Fujinami match. Because again, I've only seen Fujinami twice, and seeing Chosu for the very first time, they both really impressed me here.
Okay. Like last year, you could make a fair case for almost every match on this show, but like you, I'm going to go with Fujinami versus Choshu.
Yeah, it's a really good match.
Considering I'm not super familiar with Fujinami and I'm not at all familiar with Choshu, the two still made me feel the history of their conflict, understand how well they knew each other, and get involved in a tense but largely respectful contest that built well to a really strong finish. I'd say close second for me is Sting and Muta versus the Steiners, but I just did not like that ending.
Mm-hmm. That's fair.
MVP?
You know, I want to give it to Vader's helmet, but there's so many good people on this show. It really wouldn't be fair to people that really worked really hard. But just no, deep down my heart, that's probably my emotional pick.
Yeah.
But no, there's a lot of people that really deliver. Zbyszko was quite good. He really stood out in the show, feeling so different from everyone else, especially in this audience, in this arena. Like I said, the little things that Dusty and Dustin both did character-wise was really good. Action was still good as well. Chono made a nice baby face against the real despicable heel Luger. It's just a shame he couldn't have done better in the final match results. Obviously, Chosu and Fujinami are both really easy ones to pick. Again, liking everyone in the main event match. I feel like if we had a Sting promo, that could have pushed Sting over the edge for me, or something extra with Fujinami other than Fujinami getting the entrances. Which they said he spent $1 million in that ramp, but we only have to see it once on the American broadcast. It's crazy. I say it's not their money, but it sounds like money well spent. I think, honestly, I have to go with my gut, which is giving it to Chosu.
Okay.
Not knowing him other than my reputation, he was really, really, really good here. Obviously, anyone with Fujinami is going to look great, but he really stood above and beyond. Plus, I'm pretty sure this is the only chance I'm going to get to do this, so that's also a factor.
Fair enough, yeah. Yeah, this is a very tough call as there's a lot of really great performances tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Like you, I'm so tempted to go with Vader because of the helmet spot. But I am going to give this one to Larry Zbyszko.
Kind of thought so.
For showing future Scott Steiner how one constantly complains and mouths off without slowing a match to a crawl. He had so much character and made his match really fun to watch, and he worked really well with Arn as the more quiet, serious, but dependable partner.
Yeah.
Sorry, Arn, I'm really tempted to make this a double MVP for the double act, but I feel like Zbyszko's attitude just went above and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
And that wraps up our review of Super Show 2. If you've enjoyed listening to us tonight, you can find us on Facebook as Let's Go to the Ring. A link will be available in the episode description. Follow us for episode announcements and other show details, and share your own thoughts about each show as we go through. You can subscribe to our show on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, YouTube Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, Spotify, TuneIn, or Pandora. And please, if you've enjoyed this show, give us a rating or review and share the show through your favorite social media platforms to help others discover us. Many thanks to ProWrestlingHistory.com for attendance figures, and to Gina Trujillo for our logo. Next up, WCW New Japan Super Show 3, or in Japan, Fantastic Story in Tokyo Dome, which sounds like an anime about elves and dragons showing up in modern Tokyo during a sports event, which I would totally watch.
Say, is that not already a show?
I would be shocked if it isn't.
Yeah.
This is Bob Moore for Alec Pridgeon, signing off. Good night, everybody.
Happy wrestling.